This year is going to be a big year for Barksdale.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be very diligent and very meticulous with all of our programs and everything that we do. Eric Sprott came in years ago, and Osisko came in a couple of years ago, and Teck came in maybe over a year ago. And these people understand the area, they understand the rocks, and they're patient because they know what it could be. And so having that foundation in place with people who really understand the business makes my job a lot easier. For one, but two, again, speaks to kind of Rick's vision and speaks to the projects that are in the company. I don't think that they have great faith and great trust in Rick, but they also trust the projects that Rick brought in. Like, they really believe that these are three potential company makers, Sunnyside being the crown jewel and San Javier really being so far advanced, and then San Antonio with a potential discovery there. It's kind of, you've got strong assets and a strong leader.
Thank you for coming on again, Terri, to talk about Barksdale Resources. Just to let our viewers know, you are the Vice President of Communications at Barksdale Resources. And we will be going over the property additions and management upgrades to the project development strategies that Rick, the CEO of the company, has come up with in the years. So I would definitely like to get right into it. Diving into the first question, it would be the project itself. So San Javier Project. It's in Mexico, it's in Sonora. What is the upside of acquiring this project in your portfolio, and why Mexico?
Great question. We picked up the Mexican project, one, because it was already very robust project. They had an enormous amount, probably about $10 million spent on drilling. They were pushing this asset very hard towards the production because they had a mine up in the United States that was failing, and they really needed to kind of save the company through this asset. So they were really pushing it hard. So there's a tremendous amount of data. Unfortunately, they failed in the sense that the project that they had in the States really just cannibalized the company. And then this project ended up in private hands. So we picked it up for a number of reasons. It's in the same trend of mineralization where we are in Arizona. And Rick really saw the opportunity to take all of the data. His philosophy is buy it for $1, put $1 into it, and sell it for 5 to 10. And this project really kind of fit into the company's philosophy, where there's a lot of work that was done. We could go ahead, bring in a very strong technical team, compile the data, spend a little bit of money on it, and take it to a production decision pretty quickly. And also it would, through that process, would generate a tremendous amount of news for the company. And there's some really exciting high-grade gold zones and high-grade copper zones that were never followed up upon that we're pretty excited to take on.
The last time we talked, I remember you gave us kind of like an advice that, when we invest into a company, we should really invest into the people of the company. And, I couldn't agree more with, that statement of yours. And I also noticed that, in the last couple of press releases, you announced that you brought in a couple of additions to the management and the board. And you just talked about Rick and the CEO's vision about the company. So maybe can you talk a little bit about Rick and the new talents that you have just bring into the pool, how they would, work well together, and how they could, advance the projects of the company?
Rick, I always look at, when I invest into companies, in the pedigree of, the CEO. Where did he come from? What has he done? What has he accomplished? What the direction of where they want to take the company. I interviewed with Rick 3 times before I took the job. And I think that we were both interviewing each other because I really wanted to work with a company that had very clear direction. And he really showcased that well. He's a geologist by trade, so he's extremely savvy on the technical side. He worked as a banker for a long time, an analyst. He was with RCF for a number of years, and he really looks at projects from a different perspective. It's not drill it and they will come. It's if we take on this project, who will eventually want to buy this project, and why will they want to buy it, and how do we take it to a point where it becomes very attractive to them. So the whole direction of the company and all of the assets in the company have that overall strategy when we push them forward. He doesn't buy a project if he doesn't already have an idea of who would want this project down the road. So that was really appealing to me, because I also am an investor first and foremost. And it really kind of shows when you look at the investors that Rick was able to bring into the fold. I mean, these are really important investors: Teck Resources, Osisko Gold Royalties, Frank Holmes over at US Global. Eric Sprott came in very early. He came in about 3 years ago and has held his position. You look at that credibility that brings in, and the dollars that come in. The dollars are very sticky dollars. And what I mean by that is these are very technical investors, right? Osisko and Teck really understood the rocks in the assets that we were bringing in, and really know that their money is safe with Rick, that he's going to do everything it takes to take this to checkmate. And then when we look at the technical team that Rick surrounds himself with, I mean, some of these guys are absolutely top quality. We brought in Andy Pooler, who is going to be helping push San Javier to a decision. He worked for quite a number of years with Pan American Silver, and he was focused on all of their South American assets. So he's worked in Mexico. He's actually worked all over the world, but very familiar with North and South America, and has worked on very large projects and small projects. So we're really excited to have him on board. And then we brought in Tom, who is our geologist, our VP of geology, and he comes from some pretty big names as well. And he's extremely familiar with the Arizona area where we're in. And to be able to attract this kind of talent into the company speaks to, Rick's alignment with, the direction of the company, our investors, and they really wanted to come on board and see this all through.
Actually, I'm really interested in investing into the credible people behind the company, especially when it comes to the mining sector, because through what you have just said, Rick has a name in the industry. Rick can drive the results to the company, and I really love the idea of Rick being a geologist. And also he has good oversight to the financial industry, and he knows how to drive the company in a way that can contribute to the bottom line of the shareholders. So it's really good. And I really appreciate. If I were an investor, at the moment I'm not, but if I were an investor, I would love to appreciate that fact.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I just want to point out is it's looking at the entire process of bringing an asset to your end goal, and not taking shortcuts for the sake of market attention. I know our goal is to market the company and market it well, but we never sacrifice cutting corners to kind of get news out quick. What I appreciate is there's a very methodical way of moving through, permitting and moving through various steps that we need to do so that we have very long-term gain, right? And a very steady flow, so that it's accretive. Sometimes I see stocks run crazy high, and then the news isn't really that significant. And that's when I get nervous. I'm like, what goes up, can certainly come down if they don't have sustaining news to back it up. And sometimes I look at Barksdale, it's kind of a slow story, but when you look at the press releases that we put out throughout the last few years, they're significant, they're meaningful, and we don't cut corners for the sake of, getting market attention. The next news that we will put out will be significant. And moving forward, we will continue to do that. So I think that's kind of an important piece. We really are diligent with making sure that news is significant and processes are done, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and done very well. And that comes from the top.
Speaks to the credibility sure. And having a great team behind, forming that team is very important. And then also the support, like you dropped a lot of names there, and Eric Sprott being one of the big ones, and them backing you guys, and then you guys doing your due diligence by just communicating with the investors that they are big names. We're trying to back up our plan. Like you said, like it's not a story. You're really executing on this project and many others. So no, definitely.
Eric Sprott came in years ago, and Osisko came in a couple of years ago, and Teck came in maybe over a year ago. And these people understand the area, they understand the rocks, and they're patient because they know what it could be. And so having that foundation in place with people who really understand the business makes my job a lot easier. For one, but two, again, speaks to kind of Rick's vision and speaks to the projects that are in the company. I don't think that they have great faith and great trust in Rick, but they also trust the projects that Rick brought in. Like they really believe that these are three potential company makers, Sunnyside being the crown jewel and San Javier really being so far advanced, and then San Antonio with a potential discovery there. It's kind of, you've got strong assets and a strong leader.
Actually, maybe I want to touch base on like the financial side a little bit, like since we have been talking about the people and the project side. So I read your recent news release announcing that you recently closed a nearly $6.5 million financing deal. It was not a long time ago. And, like I am personally interested in financing news, especially successful financing news, because the way that I perceive it is that, each successful financing is like a solid proof of confidence that investors, like feel towards the company. And like in the press release, you mentioned that the proceeds will be used for the three projects, San Javier, the Sunnyside, and San Antonio projects. So can you give us a little quick brief on like each project? What are the upsides of each project, and what would be the flagship project for you this year that you will spend the most of the proceeds of your recently closed financing?
That's a tricky question to answer, but a very good question to ask. So our flagship is clearly Sunnyside. However, I believe the project that I think will be the most exciting in terms of news generation will be San Javier, because we will be drilling. We'll have a significant drill program there. We have so much data on that project already, so the technical team is very excited to get on the ground and get the drills turning. Their plan seems to be very exciting. But then when you look at when we get the drills turning at San Javier, potentially making a discovery there would be fantastic. There hasn't been a porphyry discovery in the US in probably over 20 years. So I think that would resonate tremendously, especially with, this electrification movement and the need for copper moving forward. Having a copper porphyry discovery in the US could be very exciting. And then you look at Sunnyside, receiving the permit at Sunnyside, it's like all of our Christmases coming together all at once. Being able to go in and, and drill Sunnyside would be incredible. We have the discovery holes, the very high grade discovery holes, on our side of the fence, and our wonderful neighbors next door, South 32, are building, are pushing their agenda forward, and they're building a mine, and they've already got their declines in and some dry stack tailings going. They've done an incredible job with the community there and cleaned up a lot of the mess that was there earlier and from past mining. They've done incredible work. So we're being really excited to get that permit at Sunnyside. So I think it's hard to say which project is the flagship for the year, because all of them this year could be extremely exciting. I guess the most money spent would be, the drilling at San Javier.
Looking at this as an investor, I think it's like your explanation is actually more interesting than and it's actually more appealing than I expected, because like what I have seen here is that like all the news, like all the pieces have come together, and you have the financing, you have the funding you need, and you have like all the permits that you need to like advance your projects, and you're going to spend like your funding on those projects. And we, as an investor, I can expect a good news flow like at least within a year, right? So I mean, like for a mining company, especially when it's advancing a project, like a stable news flow is going to be like very critical for the company. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to hear that.
I think once we get going, I think it'll be like a game of dominoes. Once the first domino falls, there'll just be kind of a series of news flow, right? As soon as the drills get started at San Javier, there'll be news there. As soon as the drill starts going in San Antonio, and then, having permitting advancements on the permitting side at Sunnyside will be delightful. I mean, this year is going to be a big year for Barksdale. So we need to be very diligent and very meticulous with all of our programs and everything that we do. And again, the guy at the helm knows how to dot his I's and cross his T's and make sure we're all in line and doing the best we can.
Who acquired the project, San Javier project here?
So the project was in private hands for a long time. And there's a gentleman by the name of Randy Rifle who was savvy enough to keep it in his stable of projects that he liked. And he was actually one of the longest standing members of the board of Goldcorp. Super mining savvy guy, very respected in the business. And it was pretty exciting to know that he was taking, shares into Barksdale as well as he participated in our financing. I think him and Rick really kind of hit it off, and he really understands how Rick operates and put a lot of faith into Rick advancing this to a point of a decision. And, having someone like that on the shareholder roster, and a significant shareholder, is very exciting. It just speaks to, Rick's credibility, the asset's credibility, knowing that it is a very strong asset, and with a little bit of money, we can take it to checkmate. So, we were delighted that he joined the roster and trusted us with an asset that he hung on to for a very long time.
If you were to sum it up, Terri, can you give us 3 to 5 points on this project, San Javier project, and what to look out for as an investor in 2021 from Barksdale?
I think what we'll see is, we have boots on the ground right now. They're relogging all of the old core. They're really getting organized. So when we do get the drills turning there, we should see some very exciting results. What we'd like to do is really focus on figuring out those high-grade gold zones, those high-grade copper zones, and really bulking up the resource there within the footprint. And then taking that data and really kind of adding it into the old data and putting it back out to the investors. And I think that, along with the drilling, that could be extremely significant news that investors can look forward to. And then I do believe it's such a prolific area. Our neighbors next door are one of our largest investors. So that makes it very interesting, and there's a lot of synergies there. But I think, knowing Rick, he likes district plays. So I think we will see perhaps, expanding our footprint in the area. So there's a lot more optionality for us, but really driving the programs to a decision on production. So it's not, drill it and they will come. It's not, drilling for the sake of drilling. The drilling that we're doing has a plan, a very specific plan, and it's pushing it toward the production decision in the very shortest amount of time possible. And I believe we can do that just because the historical data, there's so much historical data from us to leverage.
Any remarks from your side for an investor trying to reach out to Barksdale?
We love hearing from investors, prospective, current, large, small. Please reach out to the company. Get to know the people. We put our calendars up on the website, and you're able to go in there and book calls with us, or you can just pick up the phone and give us a call. But we're always happy to take our investor calls. But I mean, this goes for all companies you want to invest in. Call the companies, get to know the management, look at the CEO's videos. Is the message consistent from one year to the next, or from 1 month to the next? Have they pivoted their strategies to satiate the market flavor of the month, or have they been consistent? And I would urge investors to really look at all of the videos our CEO has done and really kind of analyze whether the direction has changed or if it's been consistent and if deliverables have been achieved.
That's actually great news to Barksdale that San Javier is actually progressing and hopefully producing very, very soon. Thank you for being on our show, and definitely we'll connect from there, Terri.